Welcome to Boomer Between the Games, presented by Xfinity. I'm your host, Boomer Esiason. Later on, we're going to take a look back at the Patriots' double-digit win over the Pittsburgh Steelers, and then we'll look ahead to some great NFL Week 8 matchups. But first, before we do that, let me introduce our guest for this week. On the phone, we have Brian Jones. He's a former NFL player, college football analyst on CBS Sports Network, and co-host of Gio and Jones on CBS Sports Radio. So, Brian, always great to have you here. Let's take a look back at some of the great games in Week 7. First, the Patriots and the Steelers. Now, Steelers obviously hamstrung by the fact that Cam Hayward, their best defensive lineman, didn't play, and Landry Jones was the starting quarterback. But how about LeGarrette Blount, a running back who I believe, Brian, really is the perfect complement to the passing game in New England. The reason I say that is you have 5 different options in the passing game, and now all of a sudden teams are reluctant to put 8 men around the line of scrimmage. And you know, as a former linebacker in the NFL, running backs love running into 6-man and 7-man defensive fronts as opposed to 8, and that's why he's the perfect complement to Tom Brady in that passing game.
Bingo, Boomer, and also he's a big back, big bruising back, 127 yards in that ball game, and that's his third 100-yard game on the season. And you got a big bruiser like that coming at you for 4 quarters. It's going to be difficult duty. So they get you out in space, and then they just blood you to death with big LeGarrette Blount. And so he was going up against a team that he had played for. Remember, they cut him unceremoniously a couple years ago, so I'm sure that was a lot of motivation for him to get out there and run over his former teammates.
Now, the Eagles' defense bailed out, an offense that has not played well the last couple of weeks for the Eagles. They are all over Sam Bradford and the Vikings. You know, the interesting thing about this game, if you are a defensive player, both defenses played exceptionally well. As a matter of fact, Carson Wentz completed 7 of 8 passes in the second half, but not one traveled more than 1 yard. That's how careful they were with Wentz because he had thrown into a couple of interceptions early on in the game. The interesting thing for the Eagles is that while I think Jim Schwartz is a terrific defensive coordinator, the one thing that he learned from being around Sam Bradford during the summer training camp, remember Sam was still on the Philadelphia Eagles at the time, is that Sam had problems picking up blitzes off the outside, which I think now is a roadmap for other defenses to employ against Sam Bradford. But the Eagles, they looked like a completely different team than the team that we saw against Detroit in the previous week.
That was it, man. You know, Jim Schwartz is not a guy that ideally likes to blitz a lot, but he blitzed them like Hank Buller used to back in the day. That's how he earned that moniker, Blitz 'em Hank. So you're right. He brought pressure from outside. He brought pressure from the backers, cornerbacks, everyone. You know, Malcolm Jenkins was in the backfield. You also had Jordan Hicks in the backfield. You had guys coming at Sam Bradford any which way they could. They forced 4 turnovers, and what was great about the defensive performance is the fact that the Eagles' offense had 4 turnovers as well. But the defense was able to overcome that.
Yeah, pretty amazing. I didn't think I was ever going to say this, but the NFC East right now, as we sit here, has to be the best division in football. Time for our Twitter question of the week, presented by Xfinity. And it comes from @F_Rosen in time. Sam Bradford and Trevor Siemian each play on teams with great defenses. Which QB needs to play better in order for his team to go deeper this season? For me, it's always going to be about the veteran, and that's why I think it's going to be Sam Bradford. And when I look at Minnesota right now, they've lost both of their starting tackles. They virtually have no running game. And when you think about who the Minnesota Vikings are away from home, they're a little bit of a more, different team. I think you're going to have to rely more on the veteran quarterback to make more plays, stay away from the turnovers that we saw against the Eagles. So for me, it's more so him because of his age and because of where he was drafted than it is for Trevor Siemian.
I agree with you 100%. Even though the Vikings made the playoff a year ago, that was with a different cast of characters. Of course, Teddy Bridgewater was the quarterback then, but now you got Bradford there, and this defense is still really trying to find itself, although it's gotten off to an excellent start. Aside from this past weekend there in Philadelphia, I think it's got to be Sam Bradford.
Hey, if you have a question for us, tweet at us with #BoomerBTG, and maybe we'll use your tweet on the show. All right, Brian, let's take a look ahead at some of these Week 8 matchups. Maybe the biggest game of the weekend, the Eagles at the Cowboys. Cowboys coming off of a bye. I can't believe I'm going to say this as well. I actually missed the Cowboys last week. That's how much fun they are to watch. Eagles defense, we just got done talking about that. Here come the Cowboys. Maybe the best overall consistent rushing football team in the NFL from Week 1 all the way through Week 6. They have been very difficult for defensive lines to handle. Because you ask me, the matchup of the game, like if the coach went into a meeting room before his team, he would say, okay, D-line of the Philadelphia Eagles, this one is on you. You're going to handle the best offensive line in football. And if we win this football game, you'll do what you did last week. The problem is The Cowboys are not the Minnesota Vikings. They are healthy, they are at home, and they have momentum on their side.
That's going to be the key for Jim Schwartz's charges up front. They've got to get penetration. They've got to have Ezekiel Elliott, who's been outstanding as a rookie running back. They've got to have him doing all that dancing on his side of the line of scrimmage. Make him bubble, as they like to say. But I love how Linehan and everyone's utilizing the talents of Dak Prescott, moving him outside that pocket, giving him a clear window and a view of what's downfield. So they'll continue to do that, but it's going to be tough duty for this Eagles defense. Some receivers need to step up. We'll see if Dez Bryant is going to be back in the fold. It appears that he is going to be, but this would be a much, much tougher task for that Eagles D.
I would just also be concerned a little bit about the performance the last couple weeks of Carson Wentz. So hopefully he can get out of his funk and find his rhythm here against the Cowboys defense. And finally, the obsessed Rex Ryan gets to take on Bill Belichick. However, this time there's a guy by the name of Tom Brady who's playing quarterback for the Patriots. We've seen what he's done the previous 3 weeks. He's just been so methodical. The big question for the Bills coming into this game is going to be the health of Shady McCoy. Can't believe that he played last week against the Miami Dolphins. I would have thought that they would have held him out, figuring that they could at least stay close to the Dolphins and maybe steal a win down there, and then save Shady for the New England Patriots to make sure that he was 100%.
I'm with you as far as Shady McCoy. Should have probably sat him. Gillislee is a power running fullback out of Florida. They can run him between the tackles. That's going to be the key. And Tyrod Taylor, a lot of this is going to be on him. You know, he's missing some Sammy Watkins at the wide receiver position. I guess they're used to that because it seems like he's been often injured during his entire pro career. But some guys are going to have to step up in that passing game. That's going to be the key. And then defensively also, you got to concern yourself with all those weapons you had mentioned that Tom Brady's able to hit that other quarterbacks, when they were sitting in there for Tom Brady or spelling him while he was out of suspension, they couldn't. So you got Edelman, who had 9 receptions last week. You got Bennett. You got Gronk, who had 4 receptions and touchdowns. So those guys are finding their rhythm with Tom in there, and he comes into this ballgame 8 touchdowns, no interceptions.
I'll tell you one thing. If Rex Ryan goes after Tom Brady with the blitz, he will rip them apart.
Yes.
In Orchard Park this weekend. So, Brian, I appreciate it as always coming on. Always great insight of the NFL. Look forward to seeing you down the road. Have a great weekend.
You got it, Boomer, anytime.
All right, catch us next week, everybody, with our guest Bill Cowher when he joins us right here at Boomer Between the Games. Thanks for tuning in to Boomer Between the Games, presented by Xfinity. Xfinity X1 will change the way you experience TV.